you beautiful seekers of thought forms and meditation. Welcome to this space and time. My name is Gabriel Lugo, and here I talk from self to self. I'm going to continue today with the last portion that I have of the channeling that I've been reading for the past couple of weeks. And this is from 2018, May 12th. And we discussed a couple of interesting topics about the creator and how it splits itself into a dual expression for experience. And I left the last two questions, which are unrelated directly, but they have interesting things to show for the study of metaphysics. And perhaps the most interesting one, of course, is thought forms, which is something that is used in the raw material and it's talked about in different ways, but I think it's not fully understood. And I can only give my interpretation of this and how this is a thing in the creation, and why is it important, why it plays a sort of mechanism for experience. So again, I think this is a topic that could definitely be expanded much more than I can here, but I'm just going to read this question and simply comment on it. Now I'm going to start with this. This is the last question, actually, because I want to skip the meditation question so I can leave it for the end. I'm going to reverse the order of the questions because I simply want to end with meditation. So, without further ado, the last question is Gary saying, in essence, the Confederation talks about thought forms. Is any thought, even a fleeting thought that crosses our minds, a thought form? Or for a thought to become a thought form is a certain degree of intention and energizing required from the individual or the collective? Quo says, I am Quo and am aware of your query, my friend. This is an interesting query in that it has the elements of yes and no, as so much of the spiritual journey is a paradox. Any thought that an entity may think in some realm can become a thing, or a thought form. As you are aware, your own densities, as all densities, has many, many subdensities. 7 subdensities, each subdensity with 7 subdensities, and so on, infinitely. Thus, it is possible for any thought that one may think to become, shall we say, a resident or thing at some level of being. This level of being is more and more apparent to third density entities. The more energy that is given to the thought, especially now that your planetary entity itself has entered the 4th density vibrations, so that more of these thought forms are created by the population of your planet. So, quite simple. A thought form is, yes, any thought can have a form, and that form is shaped and cultivated by any entity. Now the words are starting to fail a little bit, so let me call the mind-body-spirit complex that which generates thought forms, and the thought forms can be entities. Mind-body-spirit complex, what we know as ourselves, let's just keep it simple, and humans. Humans are mind-body-spirit complex. Thought forms are entities, but they are not mind-body-spirit complexes, right? So these entities are, say, residents within the infinity of each mind-body-spirit complex or human. In other words, thoughts cannot generate thoughts. Only the creator can generate thoughts, and you are the creator. So all thought forms are actually residents of, or guests, it depends on the person, on the individual. These residents, of course, shape the mind-body-spirit complex, the human. So we are a sort of planet for these thought forms to thrive, to become things. And these things have a sort of life of their own because they influence the way we behave. Yes? So when we feed thought forms, we're simply adding our interest, our attention to it. Now, we as humans don't really exist as entities. What we see as a person is a conglomerate of thought forms. Behind, if I can even use this word, but behind or permeating all is the essence of the Creator, which you are, pure consciousness. Something that I will actually talk about when I get to the point of meditation. But for now, just think about thought forms as a sea of influence that exists, a massive sea of influence that exists for the mind, or the mind-body-spirit complex, to get its bearings, to become something, to manifest itself. So we ourselves are thoughts. Ra says it in the first session, we are thoughts. Now they're not referring to the Creator. The Creator is not a thought. The Creator is the Creator, but it had the one great original thought. This one great original thought was that it will know itself, and by knowing itself, it will create all sort of distortions. These distortions, or part of these distortions, are thought forms. So thought forms are creating, in essence, our reality. It's what we pay attention to that grows around us. And this is a great indication for us to see what thought forms are we hosting in our own mind. What do we keep repeating? This is where meditation comes in handy, tremendously, of course. So yeah, when Quo says that a thought that an entity may think, in this case they use the word entity, which to me is confusing because they also refer to us as entities. You see, I'm not sure actually if they refer to us humans as entities, but this creates the idea that there are other entities like us that can influence us, and that's not the case. Thought forms influence us, but they are not equal to us. They don't have a spirit, if you want to call it that. So yeah, they say entities. When an entity thinks a thought, it can create a thought form. And so they also are very explicit when they say that there are subdensities and subdensities that exist infinitely, and they all have a sort of resonance there. Now, you don't have to go into all the densities and subdensities and so on. All you need to know is that there is an association of thought forms with specific energy centers. And so these energy centers have a purpose for experience. And so the thought forms related to those energy centers are going to manifest the personality of the individual. And so that's how they actually become a thing. They say a resident or thing at some level of being. This level of being is more and more apparent to third density entities the more energy that is given to the thoughts. Of course, it starts to become a reality for us. We start to see either ghosts or angels or simply reality. Especially now that your planetary itself, entity itself, has entered the fourth density vibrations. Yeah, this has to do with the veil, of course, the veil of forgetting, which is thinning, and that is, of course, making It's a long explanation, but the point is that we are able to see our thought forms, that we are creating our reality, and so we are confronting that with whatever is our impression of who we are. You know, some people are aghast at what they're seeing because they cannot admit that they are this, that they are creating these scenarios, this reality. See, it's interesting because when we love somebody, we're seeing ourselves in there. You see, that's the most beautiful relationship that can exist, because when you are in love, you're seeing those aspects of yourself that you haven't integrated. And somebody who loves you back is reflecting that. Now, even abusive relationships are a testament of this, because somebody who is trying to see that it needs to see that abuse, it's a very deep thing. We can't be shallow in this understanding, but somebody who is seeking abusive relationships is trying to see that anger, that need, that meek attitude that is needed for one to go over and over to an abusive relationship. And now again, this is not a criticism. This is just what they're seeing. It's a mirror. The relationship is a mirror of what they truly are inside. And so when somebody finally gets away from an abusive relationship, it's because they have healed. As long as they're there, then they haven't healed that part. And that's nothing to feel bad about. It's just simply healing process. It's a reflection. It's all a reflection. So let me keep on, because I actually have a little gift for you, speaking about thought forms. So at the end of this paragraph, I'll talk about it, and then I'll give you the gift. Quo continues and says, so when enough energy of thought is given to a form, there is greater possibility that the creation of this form by thought will have its own experience in another reality and become, shall we say, the milieu, the atmosphere, the ingredients of a certain kind of existence where forms of thought of many kinds are populating the environment of this level of consciousness. In some degree, there are beings that exist within your inner planes that are able to use these forms of thought as a kind of food, shall we say, that not so much nourishes a body as inspires some level of the mind or the spirit, becoming a reflection of this third density illusion which each of your 7 billion population inhabits. If you can begin to imagine the great number of thought forms created by such a population, you may begin to become aware of how these thought forms could become a kind of enhancement or ... Food is not quite the word we would use, but it's the closest to the meaning. For these entities within the inner planes must know the thought forms may become quite obscure. They are also numerous and are not without their own use and purpose in the large sense of the various levels of consciousness that are associated with your planetary sphere. So here they're explaining that dynamic that exists between that sea of information or thought forms that exists in time-space. That's the inner planes that they're talking about here. And this need for continuation of feeding the thought form to the beings that start to inhabit this inner planes. Now, I have to confess that I am not quite sure, because of the nomenclature that they use here for beings. Anything is a being. So are they referring to mind, body, spirit complexes that are in time space? I don't think so. Are they referring to specific beings like angels that exist there? Yes, possibly. And so yeah, either demons or angels, whatever you want to call it. These beings do not evolve. If my memory serves from the raw material, Ra explains that these beings cannot evolve. They're simply beings of love manifested through the layers of densities and subdensities. They simply are residents. It's a sort of layer, like a cake that has different layers, and they live in those layers. Again, they don't have a personality. They're simply energies that exist there. And it is the mind-body-spirit complexes that grow or diminish these beings. Now, in Buddhism, there is the word samskara, which is from the 5 skandhas, which are a beautiful scientific explanation of perception and reality itself and the human mind. These samskaras are mental formations. Sounds familiar? Yes, it's thought forms. And they acknowledge that these thought forms, or samskaras, mental formations, are taking place within the mind. They sort of settle in and they become a thing. And so you can see how if you have a sort of, let's talk about something that is a general thought. Communists are bad. You see, that's a thought form. That is not a real entity. That's a thought form. Communists are bad. Communists are a danger to the world. You see? So you believe that, and you feed that. You feed this thought form by believing and feeling that, yes, communists are bad, and Muslims are terrorists, and Spanish people are whatever. I don't know. As a Spanish person, I'm not sure what's the cliche of talking about Spanish people. Rice and beans, I don't know, they dance, whatever it is. All of these are thought forms, and we feed them, no matter what it is. We can say that, I don't know, whatever it is, we can say that, I don't know, mathematicians are nerds and so on. We have collective thought forms that we feed. Now, of course, there are hierarchies to these thought forms, and we feed them depending on what's our interest, and our attention always goes to one way or another, and that's what continues to feed our mind. Now, I promised that I was going to give you a gift, talking about thought forms, and I have 2 parts from the raw material that I thought was really interesting to share with you when speaking about thought forms, and especially talking about 4 density and the veil of forgetting and all of this. So, in question 1 of session 17, Ra says the following when talking about 4 density and how things are going to change in our planet. They said, the 4th density is a vibrational spectrum. Your time-space continuum has spiraled your planetary sphere and your, what we would call galaxy, what you call star, into this vibration. That is, 4 density. This will cause the planetary sphere itself to electromagnetically realign its vortices of reception of the instreaming of cosmic forces expressing themselves as vibrational webs, so that the Earth will thus be 4 density magnetized, as you might call it. This is going to occur with some inconvenience, as we have said before, due to the energies of the thought forms of your peoples, which disturb the orderly constructs of energy patterns within your Earth spirals of energy, which increases entropy and unusable heat. This will cause your planetary sphere to have some ruptures in its outer garment, while making itself appropriately magnetized for 4 density. This is the planetary adjustment. You will find a sharp increase in the number of people, as you call mind-body-spirit complexes, whose vibrational potentials include the potential for 4 vibrational distortions. Thus, there will seem to be, shall we say, a new breed. These are those incarnating for 4 density work. There will also be a sharp increase in the short run of negatively oriented or polarized mind-body-spirit complexes and social complexes due to the polarizing conditions of the sharp delineation between 4th-density characteristics and 3rd-density self-service orientation. Those who remain in 4th-density upon this plane will be of the so-called positive orientation. Many will come from elsewhere, for it would appear that with all of the best efforts of the Confederation, which includes those from your people's inner planes, inner civilizations, and those from other dimensions, the harvest will still be much less than that which this planetary sphere is capable of comfortably supporting in service. So, you see, in this answer, Ra is explaining how the 4th density is arriving. And they explain, one, that there's going to be an increase of people who are positively oriented and match 4 vibrational distortions. That's fantastic because we're actually seeing this right now. This whole mass spiritual awakening that is happening is the beginnings of this. And I mean, this is just the beginnings. This is just child's play with the full power of 4th density. So everything that we're seeing and that is called New Age is in essence the beginnings of this. All that we're experiencing right now, and it seems tremendous, of course, coming out of a dark age in spirituality. This seems like an oasis. But this is nothing, of course, compared to the full force of 4th density. There's also going to be an increase in negatively oriented or polarized people, in essence, because as 4th density shows up, then there is the 3rd density self-service orientation that still is present. Guess what? We're still seeing that. Yes, that checks. At the beginning, though, they said that the process of 4th density magnetization, if that's even a word, but for the 4th density to magnetize our planet, it's going to happen with some inconvenience. Why? Because of the energies of the thought forms that we have created, and that is disturbing the orderly constructs of energy patterns that, in essence, the planet needs to be 4th density. In other words, our thought patterns are still in 3rd density, not even negative, but just 3rd density, uninformed, ignorant 3rd density. Ignorant not in a pejorative sense, but just ignorant of reality. We haven't been well educated in these topics. So the raw material is a great attempt to inform about this, yet it still remains very complex for people to even talk about it as a body of study. It's very obscure in the sense that very people know it, and of course you can see that as a reflection here in my channel and other channels. Other channels that are very popular, they need to talk about this New Age because a lot of people are on top of this New Age conversations, and very few are actually really good at expressing this. I am not. I admit that I am not really good at talking to New Age population. That's just my own configuration, I suppose. But somebody like Aaron Apke, for example, is a phenomenal exponent of this dissemination of information. He is just quite impeccable. I don't like to idolize anybody, but Aaron Apke is one of the few people that I've rarely seen a mistake or something that I can say, well, that's which I have seen with other quite popular people in even my Spanish audience and other people that talked about this. So yeah, I highly resonate, of course, with Mr. Apke, and I think that's seen in my channel a lot. But in general, the point is that this information is not going to reach many ears. And again, you have to talk about this, all of this celebration of 4 density to get their ears and their eyes. But in any case, that's part of the gift that I had, and I'm going to continue with something else that Ra said in session 6, question 14. And then we'll give a rest to this thought form discussion, and then we'll go to meditation. In this question, Ra says, the law of one states simply that all things are one, that all beings are one. There are certain behaviors and thought forms consonant with the understanding and practice of this law. Now, pay attention to this part. Those who, finishing a cycle of experience, demonstrate various grades of distortion of that understanding of thought and action will be separated by their own choice into the vibration or vibratory distortion most comfortable to their mind-body-spirit complexes. Let me simplify what Ra said here, and you can go back if you want, a couple of seconds, maybe a minute, and re-listen what they said. They are saying that the law of one simply says that all things are one. In other words, this is unity. The perception of unity, no matter what it is in your mind, that perception of unity is a thought form. They're saying there are certain behaviors and thought forms consonant with the understanding and practice of this law. So there are thoughts that we can have, every one of us can have different thoughts of unity, but these thoughts are actually what are creating the understanding and practice of the law of one, unity. Now, why is this important? They say that those finishing a cycle of experience, that means harvest, which is now, by the way, a harvest, let me say, a cycle of experience, they could be referring here to a major cycle, I'm sure. So what is a major cycle? A major cycle is one of the 3 cycles that happens in third density. Third density lasts, apparently, or allegedly by Ra, 75,000 years. At least here on our planet. I'm not sure if this applies to all planets. Maybe. That's funny. I'm reading this and I actually have the answer right in front of me. It's funny. Don is asking in session 6, same session, question 15, the following question: what is the length in our years of one of these cycles currently? And Ross says that it's 75,000 years. Well, one major cycle is 25,000. The master cycle, is 75,000. But they say at the end of 3 major cycles, approximately 75,000 years to 76,000, all are harvested regardless of their progress. For during that time, the planet itself has moved through the useful part of that dimension, third density, and begins to cease being useful for the lower levels of vibration within that density. So we are here. Well, we're always here, but we are there in what Ra was saying. We're at the end of the cycle. And why is it important? Because they're saying that those who demonstrate various grades of distortion of this understanding of the law of one, not the law of one, the books or Ra, the law of one is unity. Let's not get, dogmatic here. It's all about your perception of unity. You may have no understanding of the law of one, zero, nothing, zippo. And you can have thoughts of unity. You can be Christian, you can be a Sufist, you can be nothing. You can be just a regular person and simply love everything. People are like this. There are many like this. They don't know anything about law of one or anything, but their thoughts are simply of appreciation, love, unity. That's enough to be harvested. Just be, whatever you are. So, so that's why it's important to have these behaviors towards life. Just relax, enjoy. It's not even, be loving, be service to others, do this, do that. That's all unnecessary. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is love who you are, and that's it. By reflection, you will love everything else, because if you love you, how can you not love everybody else? If you don't love other people, that's because, like I said, you are reflecting yourself in others. And so whatever you don't love in others is what it's causing your suffering. So just all you need to do is love yourself. Is that so much to ask? It's not. So let's move on to the meditation question, which of course just tickles me inside. So Gary says, Ra says that meditation, contemplation, and prayer allow data to sink down into the roots of the tree of mind, thus enabling the body and touching the spirit. Can you speak of how and why meditation allows data to sink into the roots of the tree of mind? If there's thought forms that are food for entities, these are the thought forms that feed my entity, my angel and my demon, whatever you want to call it. This that I am. Well, Gabriel is an archangel, so I guess I have to go with the archangel Gabriel, who, by the way, is the messenger of God. But I am just a messenger of myself. But guess what? I am God, so that makes sense. So Quo says, I am Quo and am aware of your query, my brother. The meditative state is that state of consciousness which allows that which is significant or true, in the basic sense of unity or shared consciousness and of equal participation in love and light, to be glimpsed and realized in some degree by the one who meditates. Boom. That's it. That's all we need to know. That's just it. You see, when they say that the meditative state is that state of consciousness. Now, let me emphasize something. In my teachings, I use consciousness and mind separate, only for the investigation of my method. It's not my method, but it's the method that I use is the direct path in which we go straight into this, exactly what they're saying, which is the basic sense of unity, of shared consciousness. The Confederation uses consciousness in ways that I don't really, what's the word that I use? I don't really like to use. It's not the way again, it's not wrong or anything. I'm not disagreeing with them. It's just that to me it's more confusing. And so when I teach to my students this, I use the word consciousness as the field, the impermanent field in which everything is perceived, in which everything is, or simply is. Yes. You see, it's like space. Space has no degrees. Space is simply space. So consciousness to me is like space. In any case, what they're referring to here when they say the meditative state is that state of consciousness which allows that which is significant or true to be glimpsed and realized in some degree by the one who meditates. This state of consciousness, they explain, that is the basic sense of unity, of shared consciousness. You see, and of equal participation in love and light. This is our shared being. This level of consciousness that they're referring to, because they also call it waking consciousness, for example. And we're going to start the next paragraph with this state of consciousness. But I don't like to call it states of consciousness, because to me those are states of mind. Mind is movement, consciousness is stillness. And I know the Confederation agrees with me because they simply express the same thing, but using consciousness as a way to describe our ways of perception. You know, the state of consciousness of the mind when it's sleeping, the state of consciousness of the mind when it's in the waking state, or when it is in deep sleep. In the end, I collapse the idea of mind and consciousness in my teachings, but I'm not going to talk about this here. But that is the point that they're referring to, that meditation brings you to that state in which we all share. It's the space that we all share. Even though you are in one particular part of space and I am in another part of space, we're both in space. And so we can say that our minds are both in consciousness. So you can see the threads here. You can see the what connects the net of jewels of Indra in the Buddhist sense. So they continue saying, the normal conscious experience of the life pattern is that which is fraught with distraction, though the distraction has the potential to become catalysts that can be processed into experience and thereby aid the evolutionary process. The great amount of distraction and catalyst that is unprocessed is like static upon the clear radio signal. That static can be removed by retiring and focusing the consciousness inwardly, not just within one's own being, but within the greater and greater realization of the one creator, who resides within the heart of the being of each entity. As you move deeper and deeper into the meditative state, that which is a distraction tends to fall away as the mind becomes focused in a one-pointed fashion and is no longer distracted by the daily round of activities, the errant thoughts, the feelings of separation, and so forth. Wow. Okay. Yes. This paragraph just definitely topped the last one. I wouldn't be surprised if the next one tops it even more. Okay, so like I said, they call consciousness what I call mind, and again, it's just a preference of words, but they say the normal conscious experience of the life pattern is that which is fraught with distraction. So yes, we have a lot of distraction, and this distraction actually has the potential to become catalysts that we process all the time. We process it into experience. That's the archetypical mind, by the way. It can be processed into experience. A lot of catalyst goes unused, like they said, and it's unprocessed. And that is like static on the clear radio signal. So, meditation can help remove this static. And this is because you focus inwardly, not just within one's own being, that is the mind. You don't go into your mind in reflections and thoughts and think about things, and no, you go within the greater and greater realization of the one creator who resides within the heart of the being of each entity. This is just immensely beautiful, because meditation, again, it's not for you to go to the astral plane and have, all kinds of experiences and look at entities and so on. No, meditation is just to stay still, to observe the thoughts. It's not to force yourself, because who's there to force anything? Nobody. It's just another thought form. So as you continue your practice of meditation, you see that you are communing closer and closer with the stillness that is the one creator, that is you, that is the one perceiving everything, is the field, the quantum field of potentiality, whatever you want to call it, is that stillness, is that silence. And so when you focus inwardly, not within your own mind, that's what they refer to here when they say within your own being. You see? And they say as you move deeper and deeper into the meditative state, that which is a distraction tends to fall away as the mind becomes focused in a one-pointed fashion. That one-pointed fashion is inevitably this stillness, this silence. You're no longer distracted by the daily round of activities, the errant thoughts, the feelings of separation, and so forth. Just beautiful. So meditation again is our essence. Oh, I can talk about meditation for hours. So finally, they say, in the meditative state, then, the entity who meditates is becoming more and more aware of the nature, the unitary nature of its own being, so that those fundamental elements of any clear perception of the creation and the creator are more easily ascertained by the meditator. The signal from the one becomes the sole focus of the attention, so that the presence of the one becomes available to harmonize the consciousness of the meditator. My God, this is so much. In this way, that which is of most use to facilitate the spiritual path becomes more obvious and is able to do its work more easily, as there are less and less distractions or energy. We search for the word drains. They meant to say less distraction or energy drains. Much of the daily round of activities is a distracting of this conscious focusing ability that the meditator is able to refine when the meditative state has become achieved and experienced for a significant portion of your space-time environment. Okay, I'm not sure if it tops the last paragraph. Let me be honest, it doesn't. The last paragraph was the best, I have to say. But key points that they mentioned here that happens when you meditate and you allow these thoughts to simply be, just leave them be. It's like when you're contemplating nature, you're not focusing your attention to a specific tree or a cloud. Or whatever it is, you're looking at the leaves on the floor. Now it's fall here where I live, so it's just a beautiful carpet of leaves. So, I mean, you can get lost in anything really. But in contemplation, you don't look at anything in particular. You're just lost there, you see? So, they say it's the same thing, by the way, meditation, contemplation. In the meditative state, the entity who meditates is becoming more and more aware of the nature, the unitary nature of its own being. That is that silence. And that way, those fundamental elements of any clear perception of the creation and the creator are more easily ascertained by the meditator. Of course, you are able to perceive, to my interpretation of this, and this is what I experience at the very least, is that you are simply present. You are alive. That is the greatest joy. There is no greater joy than to be alive. That's it. I mean, look to somebody who nearly died, had a near-death experience, or just an accident. It doesn't have to have a near-death experience with the whole, flashy thinking and visions and so on, but somebody who just, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm alive. They don't even know why. They can't really explain why. When you ask them, they don't even know what to answer. They're just happy. I'm just alive. I'm not dead. Is that because we fear death? No. It's because being alive is the greatest thing it is. So if we can enjoy this is why I say die every day. Kill yourself every day. Mentally, of course. Now they say the signal from the one becomes the sole focus of the attention, so that the presence of the one becomes available to harmonize the consciousness of the meditator. It's perfect. You see, because it's not only in meditation that, okay, I'm not listening to anything, I don't have thoughts, I don't have lights in my eyes, I have this sensory deprived state. What for? You can realize the same thing with your eyes open when walking, when laying down, when listening to somebody. You can have the presence of the one. It's not that you have it already. So you are aware of this. You see, that's why it can be ascertained by the meditator, this clear perception of the creator. Okay, so in this way, that which is most use to facilitate the spiritual path becomes more obvious and is able to do its work more easily. You see, you are not doing the work. This is something that I tweeted this past week, because it's a funny thing that we get into this work, spiritual work. I have to do spiritual work. And my question is, who are you? Who is the I that needs to do the work? Now listen to this again. If you realize that you don't exist and you're just a movement, you're an activity, and the real you is simply perceiving it. When you don't get in your own way, this is what happens. And again, this is a byproduct of meditation, which is simply stop thinking so much, stop worrying, allow yourself to sink within yourself. That is the current experience. It doesn't have to be sitting down, with the mudras and all this stuff. No, you just sit there or walk or whatever it is. There is no proper meditation. There is no way to meditate. So what happens when you do this? Well, Quo says, in this way, that which is of most use to facilitate the spiritual path becomes more obvious and is able to do its work more easily, as there are less and less distractions or energy drains. Because much of the daily round of activities is a distracting of this conscious focusing ability that the meditator is able to refine when the meditative state has been achieved and experienced for a significant portion of your space-time environment. Favorite quotes here. I don't know how I can contain myself. I actually would like to scream this. I really do. But I have a sense of elegance still. I may become mad in the future. No, seriously, this is an invitation to meditation. This is an invitation to allow the thoughts that are always present there to sink, to give them acceptance, to not reject them, but to simply allow them to exist. Not judging them. We judge ourselves more than we judge other people. In fact, because we judge ourselves is that we judge other people. And this is at a subconscious level. Some people don't even know this. Well, the vast majority of people don't know this, but I'm saying people who are in the spiritual path, a lot of them don't know it. They don't know that what they judge outside is what they judge in themselves. And they think that that is the way it should be. This is where idealism comes into play. Well, we need to do this, we need to do that. No, just because you do it, just because it works for you, doesn't mean it needs to work for other people. I'm not being authoritative here when I say this. It's common sense. You don't have to. But that's happening because you judge yourself to be a product of whatever it is that you do or that you talk about. Well, you're judging yourself that way. That's not a critical judgment, but it's a judgment nonetheless. Thinking that, this is the way. Mandalorian quote. You see, it's all about you allowing these thoughts to sink within you and being happy with everything that's happening in your mind. Why can't you be happy with all that is happening? That's a question that obviously is individual and it needs to be pondered by the meditator. Anyhow, I hope you enjoy this. I could continue talking about. I thought this was going to be a short episode, but like I said, these paragraphs are so full of inspiration for us to continue this ceasing of the activity of the mind, to allow ourselves to understand more and more who we are. At least that's the direction that I want to give to this. Other people give different directions into UFOs and ETs and suppressed history and blah blah blah. I'm not interested in any of that within the raw material. You can see that in my interpretation of the material itself. I am only interested in that which frees our minds to be able to see the Creator face to face, directly into the eyes. Which is just a matter of saying the ego dissolves and the Creator becomes within you. With this, I come to the end of this episode. I appreciate you for listening to this, for being there, being one of the few who are interested in this specific interpretation of the Law of One. I love you, my other self. I have nothing else to share today. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one.